Hello and welcome to Training Tuesday for June 22nd, 2021. I have a variety of snakes at different levels and of different species for you this week. First up, we have a royal python, a moon, and he is orienting to the target very well to earn his reinforcement. Next up, we have a series of snakes that prematurely exited their enclosures before I was ready. And so for these three snakes, I just target them back into their enclosures. So I usually open the door and then I go get all of my equipment and pick it up. And I'm only gone a few seconds, but some of them are so enthusiastic that they're already starting to shift out of their enclosures on their own. And a lot of times when that happens, I go ahead and use that as an opportunity to teach them to target back inside their enclosures. Because ultimately, if I'm using the targeting behavior to shift them from their primary habitats to holding, or from their primary habitats to an exercise space or a travel container, I ultimately want to be able to shift them back into their habitats as well. And so when the snakes do this, like this rough-scale python, Sangral, was almost completely out of his enclosure when I got back with the target and the food. So I just asked him to please shift back into his enclosure, because knowing how to do that is just as important as knowing how to shift out. He did a great job. All of them did. That first snake you saw was a Morelia bredli. Her name was Katesh. This is a Morelia carinata, and his name is Sangral. And then this snake is Merlin. He's an inland carpet python. And he was almost completely in that dog kennel below him. No dog in it, so don't worry. And so again, I just asked him to please come back up and shift into his enclosure. And there's no problem with that. These snakes that typically come out of their enclosures before I'm ready are very experienced at target training, and they anticipate what I'm going to ask them to do. The next snake we're going to watch training is Asgard. He's a Darwin carpet python, and he typically orients towards the target immediately, and then he sometimes has a little bit of difficulty when he takes his food. But it wasn't too bad this time. Sometimes he misses the first time and has to strike at it twice. This is another one of our royal pythons. Her name is Aminette. She typically orients towards the target immediately and then is very cautious in her approach to the target. And by that, I mean that she always looks at the target right away. And then it's like she has to make this decision as to whether she's going to move towards it or not. And once she decides that she is going to move towards it, then she goes a little bit quicker and she moves towards the target and touches it in order to earn her reinforcement. She did 2 repetitions during this session because I gave her a little bit smaller food items each time. The next snake that we're going to look at is Fulcrum. He's a 5.5-year-old royal python. He's really new here and he's really new to training, and so I'm just pairing the target with food, and he moved from one end to his enclosure to the other to investigate that. And he ultimately did not take the reinforcement, but that is okay because he's still learning to associate food with the target, and so this is still training. This is Mesmer. He's about 8 months old and relatively new here as well. He sits inside this cork bark a lot, and so I'm right now putting the target on the outside of the glass and the reinforcement in front of the target just on the inside of the glass, because there isn't much space for both the target and the food to fit inside. But he orients towards the target and then he snatches it and takes it into that cork bark with him. We'll finish up with a couple of my Morelia bredli who are just tried and true learners. They always just do exactly what I ask them to do. This is Tria, orienting towards the target, moving towards it, and then waiting for her reinforcement. This is Gaheris, who was way up in this elevated perch and hide thing. So I had to show him the target way up by the ceiling. And he comes down from it and he orients towards the target and he touches it. And I'm working on duration with him, which means I'm asking him to hold for longer periods of time at the target before the reinforcement is delivered. That's to teach him to pause in a certain position that I want him to be in. And he did excellent as always. And then we're going to finish up with a second look at a moon. It's the same session from the beginning, but I just can't watch this enough. He did so well.